All right, well, hi everybody. This is Adam Kunzmiller with BGG TV, and I'm joined by Chad and Eric, all Team Board Game Geek people.
That's right.
And we're here wrapping up the show. Everybody's tearing down the booths around us, and
here we are.
And here we
yapping
are,
like goons.
Yes. So, any standouts for the show?
I was going to look for questions here. Standouts for the show. It's all, Colt Express, I really liked, but it was just being demoed at this show by Ludonaut. It's a nice, you put program actions and you try to punch your other people and shoot them and steal money.
So we already have some
very
good questions coming in. One of them is, which game did you wish you could take home right now that isn't yet available? I think you both know what my answer is going to be because I've been...
XCOM?
Yep.
I've been dreaming of that.
I've been dreaming of that game. Man, it just was firing on all cylinders for me. I love the video game.
Right.
It seems like it's doing really cool stuff. I don't have to keep talking about it, but it looks really cool.
I really like Patchwork.
Yeah, you were telling me about that yesterday.
One. It's just super simple. It's not much to it in the way of design, but of course that's like the hidden design where you make it look like there's not much to it. And yet it was really challenging.
And it's a two-player, right?
It's a two-player only game where you're putting together like quilt patches, and it's more just money management with risk as you're moving along a time track.
I think those those two-player games that are still kind of interesting and intricate are hard to come by.
Yeah.
And I snag them when I see them for sure.
I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, mine, it was available here as Hyperborea. I didn't get a copy of it.
I didn't hear anything about it.
It's like the size of your luggage.
What's the elevator pitch on that one?
Basically, you're running around with characters, but you're building up your abilities by building a bag of cubes that you draw out of every turn. And each color of cube you draw is responsible for a different action in the game.
Right.
So you're developing a character by putting certain colors of cubes in your bag that lets you do certain things. So you're deciding how to specialize.
Yeah. One of the things that I just interviewed somebody about today that I thought was interesting was from Mr. B Games. I don't remember what it was. It was their Western theme one.
Spurs.
Yeah,
Spurs. He starts by saying this is a sandbox game. I'm like, okay, a sandbox board game. But it actually sounded pretty interesting. Like,
yeah, you're running around doing all sorts of Wild West
Right, on your
things.
turn, you just decide, am I going to go and try and chase down an outlaw? Am I going to go try and wrestle a horse?
Shoot a buffalo.
It's much more
all sorts of things.
Very open-ended.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do we have here? The best non-board game related thing about Gen Con 14.
Yes.
I had some pretty amazing Indian food.
I'm gonna get Indian food. You gotta tell me where, because I've been dying for Indian food. I live in North Carolina, and there's like a huge Indian section in Morrisville, but all the restaurants are kind of like average.
Yeah, one of the things they do at Gen Con that started 2 years ago is they have food trucks come, and they have like, I don't know, 15 food trucks lining the streets right outside the hall, and they do them in shifts. So there'll be a lunch shift and a dinner shift, and everything I've tried this year has been really good.
That was from the food trucks?
That was from one of the food trucks, yeah. I live here too,
point
so
me to it.
I took a picture of it. They have a restaurant in Indy somewhere, so I'm going to be going there soon. What about what about still gaming related but not board gaming related? This probably wasn't a very satisfying answer. Was the Indian food from
That's right. Let me tell you all about that.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of it in the exhibitor hall, so I saw less of it than usual. But there's some pretty crazy costumes here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a big costume guy myself, but it's impressive to look at what people come up with.
There was a girl yesterday who was in front of our booth, and she was like a satyr. Where
and she had like the actual molded legs.
She had molded legs, so her legs were sort of curved like this, and then she had something on the bottom.
Yeah, I think she was on those like stilt things or something.
She looked really uncomfortable.
She did. I saw her trying to make her way through the crowded aisles here at Gen. Oh man, she was just kind of doing like a little inch shuffle at a time.
I mean, it looked really good, but
I don't think they spend a lot of time in those costumes. Like they make their round in the costume, and now it's too uncomfortable.
Yeah, and another thing that happens at Gen Con that's a tradition is on Saturday they have the costume parade where everybody's invited who's dressed up, and they go around the public hall, so you don't even need a ticket to come see it. It's not an area where they check badges. And that's kind of a cool thing because it's all concentrated in one place.
And it's hilarious because you get the really deluxe costumes down to this guy that put a bed sheet on, and they're all in the same parade, and it's really funny.
So here's another.
So do they do that in Indianapolis, or they're like, let's go check out the weirdos?
Definitely. They definitely do.
That is on the calendar.
Yes.
in the newspaper.
There are,
Yeah.
and there are people that know that I'm a gamer and they're not gamers themselves. They're just like, so what's the deal with Gen Con? And I always tell them, come Saturday at 3 o'clock. That's the best opportunity
it's
you have to be
more, I mean,
entertained.
I don't know. People look. They are generally having lots of fun.
Oh, yeah.
They want to do that. There was a 4-year-old girl with the Darth Vader outfit. She was giving me the death eye. I looked at her, and she didn't have her mask on. She didn't have her mask on then. She just had the costume, and I looked over, and she's like, put on the mask, and she's staring at me the whole time as she walked away.
That's
Like,
great.
all right.
Let's see.
Threatening.
What were you looking forward to the most that turned out to be a no-show? Anything come in mind there?
That would be Eric Lang coming here to talk about XCOM.
What's up, Eric?
We had him on the schedule 3 times. And, I mean, but to be fair, I mean, he had XCOM and Warhammer 40k Conquest and Arcadia Quest and
He's one
Chaos
of the busiest
Hall.
guys here,
Yes.
for sure.
And meetings for forthcoming stuff.
This is a good-natured ribbing. Eric's a
Yes,
super
and
nice guy.
Eric's super
So-
to talk to.
Yeah, he's hilarious too. He's a lot of fun to hang out with. So I got a question. Which RPG did you find the most interesting and innovative? It's hard to say because I get this giant stack of RPGs and I like thumb through them for 5 minutes so that I can at least be somewhat competent when I talk to them. I really like the Atomic Robo stuff, but it's not really innovative. It's still Fate. I think what I liked about it was you are encouraged to just start playing. You don't have to do character creation.
Right.
When you need to define something about your character for the first time in the narrative, that's when you'll define it. So you'll just be like, okay, I think my character could probably do this, and the person controlling it will be like, well, they can do it now, and now that's part of your character.
Okay.
So I like how easy that would be to pick up and do, and the Fate system's super
So is
flexible.
that like the
and-
Danish school of acting where it's like the no, the no plan?
I mean, that's a part of it.
It's-
Part of it is.
Yeah.
On that particular one, you could be playing like Carl Sagan, for example, because of the
Okay.
setting. And you'd be like, I'm pretty sure Carl Sagan would be able to, would have a stunt called physics or something like that. And so I thought that was interesting. I think the Star Wars system is actually pretty innovative.
Right.
It uses custom dice, which I know turns people off, but I think what's interesting about that is there's so many systems where you get caught up in the, well, I have this, so now how does that affect things? In Star Wars, it's very simplified by the custom dice. You just have, you have the dice you roll, which are what you're trying to do against the dice they roll. You put that in, and then anything you can think of, well, the footing is really bad, so that's a negative modifier. Oh, but I'm wearing like new shoes. That's a positive modifier. Obviously not the best example, but it just seems like super
Yes.
fast and streamlined, and then you just roll it, add it up, and then you move on.
I remember that shoe segment that they added in Return of the Jedi in that special edition.
That's right. That little
So
call-out
it
box.
comes into play
Yeah.
sometimes. And of course, they hinted in the in-flight report about ways to combine all three. I don't know. It seemed obviously they just showed the beta for
Yeah.
Force and Destiny was on sale here at Gen Con, and the actual hardcover will be next year. And
Yeah.
so but they're going to tie all that together eventually for those who want.
So, I got a question, another good one. How do you think is it a good idea to split board games and iPad? And they specifically follow like XCOM. What do you think?
What do you mean split it?
Yeah.
So the idea that you have a portion on the game and a portion on the iPad, or just that they're integrated.
I mean, it makes sense for what they were trying to
Exactly.
do. It's kind of like one of those elements that, I don't have a
I
good
don't know.
example
in
right
the
now.
past,
but
we've seen things where the iPad app is really just to help the game be more efficient. Like,
Right.
there's the Sentinels app that helps you track all of the counters, and that app is awesome, but you don't need it to play the game.
Right.
The things that I found interesting about XCOM and Gollum Arcana and a few others is the app is so fundamentally part of the game
Yeah.
that it is enabling experiences that you couldn't have had.
I mean, well, it's not quite the same, but if I think about my phone, like, I don't remember anyone's phone number anymore. And
Right.
you used to have to remember that, and okay, the phone replaces that. It's not essential, but it works.
Right.
But then the phone it has all these other capabilities that it can do that I couldn't do previously.
Yeah.
Like map functions and all sorts of other things. And so here's this one tool that works in all these different ways. And so it's integrated now into my life in a way that
Yeah. The thing,
you
I
wouldn't
mean,
expect. So
I've
it's
talked-
not quite the same, but
Right.
it's that idea that, like, why not try it?
Yeah, it's something that
Why
would
not
have taken
make it possible?
1,000 cards to make it work
Right.
the way it works
Yes.
on the iPad.
and it would have been clumsy and unplayable.
Right, the way it has hidden information where you may not know that
Exactly.
something changed. So theoretically, we're going to have 16 different decks out of here, and this comes up, and instead you're going to grab the blue deck, and you don't know whether
Yeah.
that blue deck is now different from the one you're using or not. But God, you know,
I think-
don't want that.
Yeah, I think actually Golem Arcana and XCOM are both really good examples that are using it in completely different ways. So XCOM is doing what you just said, where it's enabling really complex, interesting systems that would be unmanageable without it.
Right.
And Golem Arcana is doing all of this data gathering, where the quick overview is you use a pen that is linked to the iPad or what have you, and it's how you control the game. They upload all of that, and they're going to do data analytics on it. And there
Right.
might be something that happens in the game where a quest pops up, and you can choose to do it or not. Afterwards, you can see like 40% of people chose to do the quest, and of those, 50% of them chose to screw the quest giver over, and they all lost, or what have you. And you
Right.
can see that, and they can also push balancing information down. So if they're
Right.
seeing that, well, we've looked at all the data, and this figure never loses a fight, maybe that special ability needs to be scaled back a little bit.
But why have it on the board? Why have the board at all? Is it just because the
That's a valid
miniatures are
question.
cool?
That's a valid question.
I mean, for that game, like, okay, miniatures are cool, and we like to do this and move it, but
Here's what's interesting. Wait.
So that the carpet can be removed.
Here's what I think is interesting about that one is that I don't like mini-gaming at all. It has never been my thing. And that's the
Okay.
first miniatures game where I looked at it and saw it and thought, yeah, I'd play that.
okay.
So that piece of it took away all the things I didn't like, while preserving the things that seemed like they'd be fun, like these cool clunky figures and like you can really get into it and stuff.
Right.
So it's
but you're not
enabling
worrying
this
about
gateway
line of sight
experience.
determination
Doing all the work
and
for it.
distance measurements,
Right.
things like that.
So-
okay,
Let's see.
give me that one.
Any more questions?
Anything here?
What game released this weekend was? A lot of people are asking biggest surprise. What was the biggest surprise of the show? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, again, I wrote this preview with like 300 games on it. So, and then I see lots of stuff here that's for Spiel in early 2015, and I'm going to write up a whole bunch of stuff to come. And it's only like I go around, I found this Japanese trading card game that I didn't know about called Force of Will. And they have gorgeous banners, like so many of the fantasy style games, gorgeous Japanese art. And I was just like, oh, I don't know this. I don't even know if they're listed. So I stopped to talk about, how you can do this? And they were like, oh, Eric Martin, I know you. It was just like, okay, but you should be in the system. And they're going to be a Spiel. And I'm like, send me information.
So they don't even have a game entry on the Geek?
I forgot to check. I got a business card to check later for all this. But the thing is, it's like, I want to know so the people coming can plan ahead. Like, you don't have time. If you knew nothing and walked in 4 days, like, it's going to be hard to check everything out, even in 4 days. And if you got 1 day, it's not. So ideally, everybody gets on the list, and you do the pre-planning and get all this ahead of time. So
I'm kind of in that same boat. Like, I'm doing all the research ahead of time. I didn't really come across anything.
that's right.
that
You're scheduling the
wasn't-
interviews for the people
Yeah,
who are
it
going
wasn't
to
on-
be here.
There was nothing that wasn't on the radar.
One of the
I
things
came
that
across.
that surprises me every show is there's always at least one or two products that are just really interesting and not necessarily gaming related. For me, that was the guys across the aisle with those collapsible paper
those are cool.
castle structure things. It's just like fold out things that are really easy to put together. And that's just a guy who had a company and made up this thing and then came to the show. And every year I've come here, there's been something like that where I'm just like, that's really clever and cool. I hope they do well and all of that. So.
Should we talk about Ordis Regni?
I was thinking, I was in the back of my head, that was the thing I was thinking about.
Thing. And the problem is we don't really know anything about the game.
Let's talk about it nicely.
I dealt with them quite a bit because they did a bunch of advertising for their Kickstarter project.
So as a company with the game Ordis Regni, they did advertising for this 2-player Kickstarter that did not succeed. They published the game anyway.
Yeah.
And it's a big game. Like,
It
it's
is.
a big box.
I have it at home. It's
Okay.
heavy and big, yeah.
And then there's also expansions for it to bring it from 2 players to 4 to 6 if you
Right.
get all of them. And inside they've got these custom wood
Those
trays.
wooden card trays that have like scroll patterns burnt into the wood.
Which is
right.
why the box is big and heavy.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
With
game
all
itself is just a card game, right?
With all these tiles, all
Like a
these
tile laying card game kind of
tile
thing.
card type things with artwork, but no text and no icons. It's just artwork. And then it has explanatory scrolls.
Yeah,
almost.
a little table scroll with a map, so you can like, okay, this picture, this does this action.
They also created a free app for
Okay.
iPhones where you can hover your phone in front of the card,
And it'll tell you
then
what it
it'll
does.
pop up what that card does.
does.
Because that's the hardest part of the game. They went for like this thematic thing where
Right.
it feels like really
So,
medieval
I was
because
looking
there's
at
no text.
I was looking at the forums last night on that game because we had talked about it a lot last night, and you know, the guy has a very strong opinion that he wants people to learn the cards and not need those reference materials,
Right.
and then have this rich gameplay experience where it's just all of these beautiful pieces doing these interesting interactions. And
Yes.
so
It was.
It's a game you have to invest yourself in
Yeah.
to get to that point
What has
where you
been-
know what stuff does.
yeah,
Very
I think
elaborate.
What's been surprising is how much clearly advertising he has put into it. They
Yes.
have that thing is plastered all over the board game, like all over the convention hall. People have been walking around with backpacks that have his art on it.
That's right. There's an exhibit space right outside the exhibit hall, so you can see
Yeah.
everything, and ground stickers,
Ground stickers
that
and-
lead
yeah.
you to his room, where he's got his own room
Yeah,
to
paid for a room.
show it off.
You know, I didn't even notice it, and then you pointed that out to me, and now I see it everywhere I look. I'm like,
That's
man,
right.
that
But
stuff's everywhere.
Neither of us went to really investigate the game, so it didn't quite succeed
That's true.
the way he wanted.
I think
At least for us.
one thing in general about Gen Con, I don't know if it's a surprise because it's been trending this way for a long time, but I noticed it especially a lot this year. It's become a lot more international in
Yes,
scope.
like the
And-
Japanese trading card game coming
Yeah,
out.
and just the board game presence here. I mean, even 5 years ago, you had to walk around to get to a board game booth. Now there's more board game booths than non-board game booths.
Oh, by a-
They're always
by a
running
wide
into them,
margin,
and they're
too.
the biggest booths here.
Right.
Yep.
So that's one thing about Gen Con just in general. You see that board gaming has just exploded.
It is in a big way.
Here.
It also used to be that you could not, like 2-3 years ago, you couldn't find a place to play a board game.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of the space was premium. Everyone was very protective of their tables.
Right.
Now there's so many companies that are paying for rooms. Like
Mm-hmm.
Taste Dimensional had a room, Rio had a room, that Ortis guy
Yellow
had a room.
Yellow had a room.
Yellow had a
Yeah.
room,
All this.
and I'm seeing more and more playing just happening at like 2 a.m. and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's more interesting for board gamers than it was.
What else?
a
Yeah,
while
so,
back.
and then to get to international, you mentioned. So Portal is here this year. They debuted with not enough games, but clearly it's a success. They'll be back. Artipia is coming next year.
Check
I-
Games is coming next year.
Check Games will be here next year. I mean, all these companies sort of, they are non-US companies, but the market for them is here, and they want to be here with their own items.
They tear down fast.
Yeah,
You
Santa
can hear
Claus
in
is
the
coming.
background.
His reindeer.
I know.
So I think maybe one last question. What game from the show do you think will stand the test of time?
go.
I'm sure they were selling Go Stones somewhere.
Actually,
I mean, I'm sure
I don't
King
know.
of New York is going to be
It's gonna be around
a
a
pretty long
while.
time one, just because King of Tokyo is so popular.
right. I'm trying to think more. Warhammer 40K Conquest. I don't know. I'm mostly just thinking like
Those things
there-
have stood the test of time so
there's-
far, right?
there's
You back a winner with a
oh
pedigree.
my God, yes. I mean, there's such a history there, and that was kind of what Eric Lang was talking about when we were talking to him off camera, not on camera, about this. Yeah, he was just talking about how it has so much history, and kind of all you have to do is plug into that world, and half of the work of getting someone into the game is already done because they have this history built up with them. And so now you have to make sure it resonates as they expect it to. And so there's so much to draw on with that, they can just keep going forever.
Great. So any final thoughts?
We're going home. I'm going for Indian food.
Oh, we had a minor earthquake.
Yeah. Whoa, everyone else is doing work around us while we talk.
Yeah.
That's my
Well, I know I had a
final
lot of fun. Thank you for
Yeah.
viewing. It's always great to get the questions and all the support. Whenever I walk
oh.
around, tons of people are just like, thanks for the videos. We love your site. We go there every day. I've probably heard that 1,000 times.
Cool.
You know my final thought?
Yes.
2 months for Spiel. That is my thought. Now it's like you hit the accelerator.
Yeah.
Because my inbox is like, oh, this is coming out of Essen. Here's something from this company. Here's something from this company. We got 2 months
We have-
before Essen starts, and it will not stop.
No time to dwell on this Gen Con stuff,
Oh
right?
my goodness.
That does
Yes.
remind me of one more thing. More and more things that we see people saying released here at Gen Con. That's
Yes.
another thing
Yes.
we never heard
For
before.
sure.
It was kind of right, like Five Tribes, Abyss, Hyperborea. They flew in the Cyclades Titans.
Right.
Um,
King of New York.
And there's-
Samurai Spirits.
And they're still
The
releasing more stuff at Essen. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
They
Oh,
didn't
of
blow
course.
everything at Gen Con.
Kingsport
That's
Festival.
the crazy thing. There's a
Kingsport
lot of
Festival,
stuff.
I was surprised to see because I didn't even know it was
Right.
going to be here, and suddenly like, oh yeah, we flew in a couple 100. Okay, it was Spiel released now. The U.S. market is kind of bigger for those companies.
Yep.
You know, so.
All right, great. Well, that was Gen Con 2014. BGG
From Essen.
out.
Spiel.